Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, your creativity and spiritual life coach, and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before we go into this week's episode with Bianca Rael, I just want to share with you some ways that I can support you. Firstly, I'm inviting you over to listen to Her Inspirations, which is the sister podcast to Her Conversations. This is where in each episode I explore a different aspect of our spiritual and creative journeys. Also, if you join the mailing list, you receive additional emails with teaching points and resources for you to explore deeper on your own personal journey. Also, save the date because the next Creative Confidence Masterclass happens on July the 14th of August. In that, you'll rediscover your creative abilities, explore spiritual practices to enhance your creativity, and build a strong connection with your intuition. You will then be able to integrate your creativity into all aspects of your life. All of the links to these are in the show notes below. My guest on this week's episode is business and mindset coach Bianca Rael. She helps ambitious soul-led women in their 40s take the brave and bold AF step of discovering what sets their soul on fire and turning it into their money-making business. During our conversation, Bianca shares about feeling the call of her soul to do more after raising her daughters, finding strength through a cancer diagnosis, and aligning with her being purpose of being a portal for shifting paradigms. So as always, I begin by asking my guest, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
I think there are quite a few different places that I feel it. One of them, and actually I felt it just the other night, because one of them is actually sitting with my girls, my daughters who are teenagers, and just chatting. Just sitting and chatting and realizing that this is something that I always dreamed of, actually, when I wanted to have children and the kind of relationship that I wanted to have with my girls, that it was exactly like this. And so that for me, in that space, I often have that moment of, just like, I just love this. And I think it's kind of speaks to, I think when I am in a place where I'm coming from my purpose. And, part of my purpose is I see myself as I'm a portal for shifting paradigms. And whether that's through the work that I do or whether that's also through my family, I'm sort of doing that in whatever it is that I'm doing. And, it's maybe something we can speak about. It's like, because that is my being purpose. I believe we have a doing purpose and a being purpose, and that is my being purpose. So I think that anything where I am really living in my being purpose, where I'm doing something that feels completely soul aligned and sort of being who I am meant to be and who I want to be, I'd say that is it.
Perfect. Sounds beautiful. And yes, we'll go back to that. I like the way that you've separate the being purpose and the doing purpose. So definitely going to ask you about that again. But before we go into our conversation any deeper, Bianca, please, can I give you a moment to just share your story, your journey, and what's got you to being the woman and offering the work that you do today?
Thank you. I am a business and mindset coach. and I help women in their 40s. I call it their brave and bold as fuck midlife era. I help ambitious women and soul-led women discover what sets their soul on fire and how to turn that into their money-making business. Mm-hmm. And that really has been my journey. So my background is teaching. I can share a whole story about how I got into teaching, but I'll maybe cut that short for now and just focus on this. Yeah, I went into teaching, and then I had my first daughter, and I always knew that I wanted to be at home with my girls. And so I stayed at home, and I had my second daughter a little bit sooner than expected. And I was a stay-at-home mom. And while I absolutely love the time that I had with them, I do think that there is something about being a stay-at-home mom which can be, for me, a little soul-destroying. It's so rich on the one hand, but on the other hand, there is something in you, in kind of your identity, that gets lost. And that's what happened for me. And I think it was around my 40s where I really started to look at my life. And, you know, for me, it feels like it's a soul's calling. It's like your soul is calling for more. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not a logical thing. I had a beautiful family. I had, you know, to some people, everything kind of thing. And yet I wanted more. And there was something that was missing for me. And there was something that made me feel very lost, very stuck, very lonely. And really wanting to do something with my life besides being a mom and a wife. And knowing that there was so much more for me, knowing I had skills, knowing that I had so much, but it wasn't being put out into the world. And there was, a real sense of loss, actually, of me, of who I was. And I think, you know, then getting to that question that I think many of us get to, who am I? Who am I? What am I doing? And that led me on pretty much a 7-year journey of discovering, of trying different things. You know, I started lots of different businesses. I was a blogger. I'd never read a blog in my life, but I became a blogger. I started a gifting business. I did quite a few different things, which eventually led me to where I am now as a business and mindset coach. And now I feel like I have absolutely found the thing that I'm meant to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. There's so many questions that I can ask as well. I think I'll start with this because it's maybe something that many women won't just say out loud like you did, of saying of like having that journey and knowing that you wanted to be a stay-at-home mom so that, you know, you could raise your daughters in the way that you wanted and they deserved as well. But then also the fact that there's an element of yourself that gets lost, you know, as that trade-off. Do you think that's there for everyone, that's always been there, or it's just a sign of the times that there's a comparison to the women who go out there and either don't have children or have children later or try and juggle the two, that there was a part of you that was making a comparison, or it was just a felt experience? I hope that makes sense.
I think it made sense. I think for me, you know, I think what I've realized is that everyone is different. And so for some women, and let me know if I'm answering your question properly, I think for some women, being a stay-at-home mom and doing that, you know, for their lives is absolutely fine for them. And then there's some women who want more.
Mm.
And, you know, I think I've always been an ambitious woman. And, you know, I started my first business actually when I was like 24 years old. I just had an idea and I kind of went with it. And so I think for me, there was that entrepreneurial spirit, and I couldn't ignore that.
Mm.
So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
So, like to like express it however however you receive, because I don't think I actually like worded it in the way that it was formulating in my brain. So do your best with what I gave you. Thank you.
I do think, though, today there is so much more available to us. There's so much more choice. And I think there is pressure of kind of having it all. And I think at one point I didn't buy into the having it all.
Mm.
And I think having it all is also very different for every person, whatever having it all means for you.
Mm.
But I do think that today we are able to be a mom, have a business, make money. We are able to kind of have it all. Yeah, why shouldn't we?
The idea of having it all always gets put forward of, you know, you can have the career, the house, the man, the job, the kids, the $7 the seven figure business and all of those things. And I mean, I'm hearing so many different takes on that in terms of women in particular who have gone and tried to do the have it all and then come out the other side maybe with all of the gains that they got from having it all in the career, but yet then they found that they didn't necessarily mother to the extent that their children needed because their attention was so set on kind of having that and then having that, and usually it's the children that are the ones that suffer as a result of the woman has it all. So she has it all, but then she has children who are dissatisfied with the level of parenting that they received. So did she really have it all or not? I mean, who knows? I don't know, because like you say, everyone's different and everyone's expectation is different. But it's is there a way that we can have it all and everyone is satisfied, so we're satisfied and then the children are satisfied? Obviously, if you're able to generate, you know, the income, then you're able to give your children more opportunities. You know, maybe you can send them to different educational institutions, give them different experiences, they can live a different life. But then that core connection, which is free, is the thing that they don't require. And like how you began this conversation when you were just talking about being able to just sit and have a conversation with your girls and you just going, this is gold. There are women that I know who are hyper successful but don't have that, and the kind of the gateway for that to happen, or for it to naturally build, has gone. So then now they're going to try and do it in retrospect, and then it really depends on the child whether the child can put into their mind why they maybe didn't have that connection with their parent because the parent was out there trying to get all the things and it was not possible to be there all the time at all the events. You know, seeing mom in the crowd when you're doing like your first recital on a Wednesday afternoon, which is when you're in a career, it's like not always easy to just drop it and go, I've got to go and watch my daughter like recite something. But those are the moments that build the core and the connection with a child. So I think there's a no, we can try, but then there's never a win, really. There seems to be, I'll go with that. There seems to be, there's always one side of it, one area of it that will be lacking. And hopefully it, maybe, you know, you miss out on the career or you don't get the promotions or whatever, or whichever way you're working, so that it's not a human being that misses out on what you could have given them, because that's a really big cost. to pay for your having it all.
I hear you. I think for me, it's more when you have your own business. So as an entrepreneur, it's a lot easier. I think if you are in corporate career working for somebody else, it's a lot harder because you are physically away for a lot of the time. So for me, it is really speaking to being an entrepreneur and creating your business around your life and you consciously creating the kind of life that you are wanting to have. It's also looking at what are your definitions of success? What are your definitions of having it all? You know, if one is working, if you only get to have it all, if you're earning, 7 figures and all that, then maybe you don't get it all, or you can get there. But I think that the way we have also been led to believe what it means to have it all, and in terms of running a business according to very masculine, energetic ways, is different to when we're able to actually run a business from a more feminine, energetic way, which allows for us as women to feel more centered, more in flow, more in truth, more soul aligned to what it is we're doing, which then makes for better parents and makes for better entrepreneurs because you're not burnt out and hustling and, doing all of that. So I think it's the way that we do it, which can allow for the have it all. I also think that there is a time for it. And so I think when our children are younger, it is a lot harder to, not that it's not possible, but it is a lot harder to run a business, start a business, have that going. And I think one can still absolutely have that and give to your kids as well. Maybe you won't be in your 7-figure earning period yet when you've got little kids. But for me, it's not even so much, yes, it's about the money, but it's about the feeling inside. It's about knowing that you are making conscious choices for your family and for your business so that they can exist, not just exist, but actually thrive side by side. So, yeah, I think it's about being conscious and knowing that we create as opposed to we just have to slot in. How do we, I create, I set aside a time. I don't schedule time in. My children have soccer matches on a Wednesday. So that for me, that time is blocked out because I want to go watch their matches. So it's creating what it is that you want and realizing that we have the power to do so.
Yeah. So this is your expertise and this is the conversation that we're here to have. And so talk about that. Talk about creating the soul-led business that you want, and what is the typical client that will come to you, and what will she be feeling at that point in time? Is it something that she has something on her mind, she doesn't have belief in what she does? Like where is she on her journey when she reaches out to you and saying, I need to do something different with my life and I feel that it could be this? How do you guide her and help her through those things?
So I think it's generally, I'd say, at different stages, but a lot of the women are at the stage where they're also feeling that calling for more. It's that thing of like, I'm wanting more. And very often, a lot of them are in the place of wanting more, but feeling scared. Feeling scared to take that step, to put themselves out there, to to know sort of what to do. I'd say fear and overwhelm. Overwhelm of where do I start? What do I do? You know, how do I get there? How do I start this business? And then, of course, like I said, the fear of actually, can I do it? You know, who am I? What will they think of me? All of those kinds of struggles, I think that so many women, I think we have it throughout the journey, but I think especially when we are starting and we are transitioning, and especially if one has been out of the work world for a while, then there is that loss of confidence in oneself when it comes to business and to, you know, putting yourself out there, to the social media, to all of that stuff. So the advice well, firstly, I'm always really excited when women come to me in a place of feeling lost and stuck, because, and I kind of say to them, I know how awful it feels, like I know, but I'm so excited for you because I know where this can take you. And, you know, that loss, that stuck, that place is such a difficult place to be, but it's so often the turning point. And it's like, it's like, I know what beautiful process can follow. And so that for me is the exciting part. But what I kind of always say to them, for me, I always start with purpose, you know, figuring out what is your purpose. And then getting very clear on a vision for one's life. What do you actually want? Because so few people can actually answer that.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, that to ask somebody that question, you know, and I think the older they get, the harder it is to answer that question or maybe even voice it. I'm guessing that everyone has like an idea or maybe a dream that they had at some point that maybe they didn't follow through and kind of taught themselves out of it or got taught out of it. But there's always like an wouldn't it be nice if, or an idea that pops into your head that you might just want to try. There's always something there. That I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. I was thinking actually, like, I've always been a side hustler, even before it was called a side hustle. Like, even when I was like a young girl and I was playing the piano, and then my cousins really liked, they were like, what shall I do? You know, like, how do I do what you're doing? And I would teach them what I knew and get, you know, like a couple of pounds or anything like that. And then when I learned how to sew, I'd like mend people's clothes or design things for them, you know. So I always knew that it was possible to make money from the things that I knew how to do. You know, the biggest skills were obviously going out into the world and kind of like turning it up and making it, you know, making it support me in a bigger way. But I always saw that there was a possibility of things, and people, you know, everything can be sold, everything can be monetized because it is. And I think sometimes, especially when I'm having conversation with people about their purpose, I'm like, go back to the things that you like to do, or think about the things that people ask you to do to this day. There'll be something that in your circle, you're the go-to person for this, and that could potentially be something. And in this day, like you're talking about social media, there's a possibility for everything from every angle. And one thing that I'm really noticing now more, or maybe just because I'm more aware of it, are how much more middle to middle age and upwards influencers there are, talking about their lives from all the different angles, from whatever it is that they're doing. Maybe they're starting to go traveling, maybe they're making things, maybe their fitness. You know, I'm following women in their 60s and 70s who are completely recompositioning their bodies, you know, when years ago it was thought that, well, if you kind of get to like 50 and you're carrying like a few extra pounds, you know, just that's what you're gonna go to the grave with, you know, that ill health. But there's this like new shift in what middle age means and what it can mean. You know, we played the game for a bit maybe, and then we got to 40s and 50s, and it's like, are we going to do this for another 30 or 40 years? And there comes this like stark realization of, I have to do something now if I want to see those years out with joy and with the benefits of that learned wisdom that we have. And it's harder, I know, to step out, and especially if you've always done one thing in your family, kind of identify you as something else, and then to decide that you're going to be something quite different, because one, there might be that they are concerned that it might not work for you, but then also there's, if you do make a radical shift, you're showing the people that are too scared to make the shift that it can be done, and then they don't have any excuses now. You know, so oftentimes your own transformation is not just how it transforms you, is the light that it shines on the people that surround you. And sometimes it's a positive experience, sometimes it's not so positive experience, but also it's always a massive growth experience for your own self, and to really find out what you're made of and the areas that you need to build up and heal, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship and putting yourself out there, because you have to have a thick skin and a good grounding and a sharp, you like all of the things that you need to deal with. You need to bring them on. I think there's probably no better self-development exercise than to start a business and
100%.
put
I
yourself
think
out there.
definitely becoming a parent and becoming an entrepreneur.
Mm,
All your stuff's going to come up. You're going to need all of it. All your fears are going to come up. All your fears of rejection, of abandonment, of what do people think of me, of judgment, all of that is going to come up with entrepreneurship.
mm,
And it really is the ones who succeed, or the ones who are prepared to look at that stuff, to own it, to look at their shadow, to really do the deep inner work, because so much of it is about that, especially as an online service-based business.
mm,
It's yeah, it's a journey. It's an absolute journey.
mm. What are some of the things that you've encountered in your own journey in building your own practice and your own work?
I think first, just actually getting going, having the courage to start, having the courage to do something that I didn't really know anything about,
Mm,
and having the courage to just go for it. So starting with finding that courage. And, that's why I said as well, I think when sometimes we need to get to that really dark, kind of bottom of the barrel place, because it's that often instigates the change for us. There's a beautiful quote, something like, what's it? You only make change when you're finally tired of your own shit, kind of thing. And so for me, it was facing a lot of my fears of failure. From there, it was starting to show myself online, recording the first video of myself. And it's interesting because I've always been very comfortable with public speaking, but speaking on camera is very different.
mm.
Recording yourself on camera is very different. And I remember I was in a Facebook group, and, the woman there encouraged us to try do go live, or to record yourself and post it. And it took me so long to be able to do that, because every time I'd hold the camera up and I just felt like embarrassed in front of myself. I just felt so self-conscious. And it took me a long time before I was able to do that and show up yeah, then, it's building resilience. It's not letting failures, supposed failures. I don't believe in failure, but supposed failures of launches. It's not letting that stop you. It's keeping going. It's continuing to sell even when no one's buying. It's not taking things personally. And, something I've said before, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you really have to be able to have a sense of humor and laugh at yourself. You've got to be able to put yourself out there and go, that was pretty bad, but it's okay because I'm learning, and to do it again. Yeah, so for me, it's really, I've had to build my resilience to keep going, to know that people buying doesn't mean anything about me personally. There's a lot. I don't know if I've sort of named it all.
I mean, there's always more that comes up,
There's
like
there's
as
always,
like all of the things that you've said, like fear of failure, the courage, the resilience, the putting the camera in your face and just try not to pull yourself apart all the time, and just doing it and posting it because sometimes you overthink how many people are watching you. You like think that you launch and you think that millions of people are going to watch, and it like no, sometimes it's crickets, and but
absolutely.
also be grateful that it is crickets sometimes and just kind of keep going, and you can make all your mistakes kind of in the dark, where
Yeah,
not too many people are watching, and then you just kind of build up from there. But
yeah,
the thing is, most definitely, I would say to start and to get going and to know it's the internet. So it's the internet. So you're going to get people who love you and people who not so much. And oftentimes the people who really resonate with you or want to work with you may not even like your posts or like will just be watching you from without any contact, and they're not the ones that will um necessarily make themselves known until they're ready to align with you, and then they'll come forward and you'll find out actually that they've been watching you and like listening to your stuff for a long time. I've had people say that to me as well who've turned up on things that I've done. I'm like, oh, like I didn't even realize, like you don't even recognize that. So sometimes it's not even looking for any response, really. It's just putting it out there so that and we look, obviously we're talking about online things now, so that you're creating like a body of work, really, that oftentimes, like one time, if someone does find you, maybe they'll go back and really binge through your stuff and really get a sense of who you are and where you're at. And like you're talking about the self-development piece as well, the more that you can work on the things that come up for you and then relate that in your communication, then people will see your growth and your authenticity, because there's so much that isn't real out there, that to find your what's real about you and what's different about you as well, whether it's perfect or imperfect, whatever that means, is what's going to set you apart, because there are so many people out there offering something. How are you going to make yourself different? And the difference is you being you, really.
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you about the being purpose and the doing purpose, because I really like that phrasing that you did at the beginning.
Yeah, so, it's like if you meet somebody for the first time, we often say, what do you do?
Mm,
And our response will be, I am a coach. We don't say I do a coach. We say I am a coach. And so we identify what it is we do with who it is we are.
mm,
And when we do that, that is when we do get upset when something in our business doesn't go according to plan or fails or whatever it is, because we take that to mean something about us. But who we are and what we do are two separate things. So who we are as our being purpose, that is, no matter what it is we're doing, we are always being that. That is who we are always. And we can fulfill that purpose through simply being in the world. It doesn't necessarily require us to do anything. And I believe that each one of us has a purpose to be here. We have each come with a purpose to fulfill in this lifetime. And I think our souls know this. You know, it's why we have that feeling of there's something more for me. It's because there is something that is not always logical, that is not necessarily because of how we're brought up or whatever it is. It's just something in us that is calling for something. And so our being purpose is discovering our being purpose is fulfilling that part of us that is here to be, to live.
Mm.
It's not conditional as to what it is we do, or, you know, we just, this is who we are. And yeah, so for me, I got to, through a process that I do, I got to my being purpose is, as I said, being a portal for shifting paradigms. And then my doing purpose is what I do. My doing purpose is to help women really rediscover who they are and find the truth of who they are, and to then align that to a business that makes money for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that actually is, you know, if I speak to that, that's sort of more, that's actually more my niche in a way. My real doing purpose is to help women return to their truth of who they are and to live it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope that explains it.
No, it's beautifully. And how did you, you know, when you got to the point of knowing that you'd happened on your eureka moment, like what was it that shifted in you, or like how long did you meander around until you found what it was?
So it took me, you know, like I said, it took me about 7 years of trying and of, for me, I call it following the crumbs of joy. So I would constantly be thinking, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And then it wasn't so much thinking about actually what should I do. It was an idea coming to me and me going, oh, that feels like something I should do, and then following that. I think underneath it all was a sense of what I'm meant to be doing. And it went back to my teaching. And always, if I thought about where was I most happy, what actually do I enjoy doing, it always came back to I really enjoy teaching. But I had been a primary school teacher, and it wasn't so much about teaching ABC or teaching children. I didn't want to work with children anymore. I was very clear. I always wanted to empower women because I always saw myself as an empowered woman. I used to see myself as a feminist. These days, I prefer not to kind of label myself too much.
Yeah,
But
that word's got a bit weird now as well.
yeah, so I don't even know what it would be now, and I don't really speak about myself like that way now, you know, but I always believed in lifting women up and empowering women. And in fact, I could speak about something about that, but I'll stick to this. And so I knew that there was something with teaching, but I just didn't know what it was. And I also knew that I always saw myself speaking in front of people. And again, it was I don't quite know what it is, and I don't know how to get there.
Mm.
And so I started to create it for myself. I wanted to work with women. I wanted to speak in front of women. I wanted to teach. And so I put out like a post on our local Facebook group, kind of speaking to where it is that I was. This is what I was looking at creating. This is what I was thinking. And I had like an overwhelming response to my post. And that's pretty much how I started. I started at the time, it was called My Women Tribe. And it was a networking sort of platform for women entrepreneurs. And I then created a paid facilitated workshop where women join. I did a women's evening with a guest expert, and I had 60 women coming to that. And I just started following the things and creating for myself. Mm-hmm. Instead of waiting to go, okay, how am I going to find somewhere where I can speak? I created it for myself. I was like, okay, I'm going to bring 60 women and I'm going to get up. And I wasn't the guest expert at that time because I wasn't quite ready to step into my role yet. But I started just creating things for myself. And yeah, I think for me, it was really just following what was living inside of me, what I knew wanted expression. Mm. And then obviously doing, maybe doing different courses and things like that, and kind of going deeper into things, but always following what felt good for me. Not based on what somebody else said, not based on what I thought was good for me, what felt good for me. For many women, we've lost that sense of trusting ourselves and really feeling into our bodies and our intuition. And so it was very much a journey of that, of just following what felt good and what felt right, and knowing that that was going to lead me closer to what it is I was wanting to do.
As you were speaking as well, I wrote down confidence and trust ? So the question is, what gave you the confidence to trust what it is that you were seeking out, even though you were still seeking it out? Do you know what I mean? And you just going, actually, this isn't it, I'm going to move on. This isn't it, I'm going to move on. What was building you up, or what was holding you in that space? Because that's not a common thing, as you probably know and will have encountered, that this idea of failure being the end, and not understanding that failure is maybe just, this isn't working, you need to tweak this and change. But because we often take failure so personally and think it's a personal attack, that kind of, it will floor people, and they shelve something when maybe there was just one tiny little thing that needed changing. So what was it that gave you the confidence to know that if you kept moving around, that you would find it? Or and what were you trusting in, and where did that all come from? Because like I said, it's uncommon to just have that innate.
So I think for me, I've been doing personal development for a long time. Personal development for me wasn't a new thing. Just before I met my husband, I had done kind of a psychic course because I was wanting to get more into that. When I was a young girl, I remember reading a book on astral projection and being like so interested in that. I've done many different forms of meditation. So I think it was, for me, my journey of personal development in my life had got me to a point where I felt courageous enough to be able to do that. I also think, which actually something that just came to me right now as we were speaking, because I love that question actually. So I always speak to my clients about having a vision. And that vision is something that it's not so much, for me, it's not about goals. It's not a goal setting. It's a real embodied vision. It's how does it feel for you? What can you see? Where do you see yourself, and how does that feel for you now? And I think I always saw myself. So when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of TV, 80s girls. And did we all watch so much TV? Or was that just me? I don't know.
For a
But
bit, there was a period of time where we didn't have a TV in our house, actually,
okay.
growing up, and we felt so hard done by, but it was actually the best thing that happened to me during those years. But I
Yes.
made up for it as soon as I had some money. I bought one and so I made up for the lost years. But yeah.
So I remember watching the movie Working Girl
Mm.
with Melanie Griffith and Joan Cusack, and I can't remember who else was in it. And I remember seeing them in their business suits, the very yeah, what's it, a pinstripe skirt? Is that what it's called? Is that right?
Pencil skirt.
Yes,
Like
pencils.
slim,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Pencil skirt and the blazer. And I always wanted to be that. So there was this desire from very young to be this empowered businesswoman. And that vision is so strong for me. And so although I'm not somebody who could be in corporate or work for somebody else, that's just not me. But that vision of me being an empowered businesswoman has actually been there for me my whole life. And so I think that is what gave me the courage to go, because it was and still is wanting to achieve that and wanting to accomplish that. And yeah, that for me is the power of one's vision, because it does give you the courage to do what it is that you're wanting to do. Mm. It's when your vision becomes stronger than your fears that you're ready to go for it. And so I think that's what happened for me. And then the trust, yeah, I think, I'd already done quite a lot of work with manifesting, with trusting in universe, with there being something bigger than me. I'm not one to follow convention. So in my life, I think I already have a sense of courage by following my own path and creating my own path. I think that's probably what gave me the courage and the trust to do that.
I love the idea of just having a vision that you can like hold on to in almost like a stubborn way as well. And as you were speaking, there was so much of me just going, yeah, that's kind of what I've done. I never had a vision of myself going into corporate, but I just always wanted to have nice clothes. It didn't have to necessarily be the whole corporate vision, but it was always about for me, it was always about creating something, like whatever came out of my mind, it had to be that it initially was music and songwriting and performing and doing all those things. But interestingly, like you said as well, there was always this idea that I would be speaking in public. So then now that I've started to do that, because they're similar and different, there's a similarity, but there's a difference there as well. So it's bringing all of those things together, and especially when I was like, okay, what's the next thing that I'm going to create? What is that going to be? It kind of brought in all of those things, all of that, which is why I kind of align the creativity and the spirituality, because I know that they're interlinked. Like there's nothing between the two of them really. And your creativity, the deeper that you go into your creativity, is as a result of the deeper work that you do for yourself. And the more that you can do that, and the more that you can root into your soul's purpose and the higher part of you, you then become pretty impervious to people's opinion and criticism. After a while, you hear it, and sometimes if you're having a weaker moment, then you're like, oh, okay, it'll sting, but it's like ultimately it doesn't matter. really, but it takes a long time to get there because we're always surrounded by the closest to us that tend to have the loudest voices and have the biggest opinions, but then it's just, but they're not me, and they're not the ones who are going to have to look me in the eye when I'm 70, 80, and 90 years old and drawing my last breath and wondering what I did with my life. And that also as well has been one of the biggest drivers for me, is like I want to be able to look back on my life and go, I did my best. I tried to make something of it and didn't just pretend that, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just do this and I'll be okay. Because for me, the fear, if you want to put it, a fear of it was of thinking that I would be okay by doing something else. That was the risk. The risk wasn't going for it. The risk was like, no, like I'll pretend that it doesn't matter and do something else. I couldn't see how that could work for me because, as you have those moments of joy with your daughters, there would be moments of joy when, especially when I was younger and going into the studio and suddenly fleshing out a song that I just heard in my mind and I hearing it come back at me, like the moments of joy of just hearing that idea become real so that other people can experience it. Nothing else, nothing else comes near to seeing your creation, hearing your creation be tangible in the world. Like nothing could ever match that. And I worked, and I worked for other people and I tried it, and there was always that part missing. And then there was always that niggle in the back of my ear going, you're not going to stay here that long. It's not good enough for you. You know you're not happy. And I knew that I wasn't happy because I'd had those moments and flashes of joy of this is what it's like when you see an idea through. And I just want to get as many people to experience that for themselves, because joy isn't found in what you're trying to pull from the world. Joy is found in finding what is whispered to you in the middle of the night and putting it out there and see it become realized. There's nothing that I've experienced that can match that, which is why, I suppose that's the thrill that I'm always chasing, is putting my ideas out, putting my the thing that tells, like, why don't you do this? Like, yeah, okay, then why not? And putting it out there with no guarantee that it's going to work or not. But invariably now I'm finding more and more, the more that I put it out there, the more it actually resonates with people. So then that builds the confidence. But the early days, of course, you just don't know. It's uncharted water, but nothing will give you as much joy than going for what your heart is trying to tell you to do. I can't explain it more to anybody.
100%. Sometimes that just starts with you making a choice. Am I prepared to continue to live a life where I'm fearful, where I'm not happy, where, all of these things, although it might feel safe in a way because it's known, or am I wanting to try something else? It's like I always say, are you going to be more loyal to your dreams or to your fears? And sometimes it's just about making the choice and going, that's what I'm choosing. And, I speak about being like brave and bold as fuck. And it really is, sometimes it's just going, I'm going to do it. I don't know where it's going. I don't know where it's going to lead me. But I'm at the point in my life where I would rather try than not try. Mm-hmm. And I think that is what happens to many women in their 40s, is they get to that point. They get to that point where they are waking up to the fact that they've actually been living on autopilot for most of their lives. Mm. And they're now starting to go, hold on, is this how it's going to be?
Right.
And it's like you said, is this like, and actually realizing that you have a choice. Mm. Mm. Sometimes it is as simple as just making a choice.
I think there's more people that are having this real awakening about this choice that they do have, because I think the generation before, it was, jobs for life and, put your dreams away and, if you had an idea, well, you know, I wanted to do this, but I had children, you can kind of blame, you know, the fact that you didn't go for your stuff on your children, which I think is a terrible thing to do. Um, but I think the pandemic changed for a lot of people when they're broken out of, the pattern was broken for them anyway, and either they were staying at home or they were working in a very different way. So it gave them time to kind of sit and assess what happened, because you know, for most of us, you just get on the wheel and just keep going until you get, you know, the couple of weeks holiday, but like the couple of weeks holiday, you've got to go back in as well. But even recently, I don't know why YouTube threw it on my in my recommended video, but there was a video by a man actually who he went to MIT. So, you know, he went to one of the top universities in the world, and he was trained, I think, as a neurosurgeon or something like that, high level guy. And he worked in that field for a decade or so, something like this. And then he gave it all up. And he gave it all up and walked away and was just starting to make videos in the mountains. And one video was him, and it was about 40 minutes long. So it's quite a long video for YouTube, where he just sat and told his story in the camera about what it was, where he realized what he was doing wasn't right. And, you know, the whole pharmaceutical industry story is a completely, you know, another topic. But it was not just about what he was doing on a level within the industry. It was just that it wasn't answering his soul, and he walked away from it. And when I saw that video, it was like only had like a few 100,000, which is quite a lot in YouTube land. But then as a result of watching that, I saw another follow-up video that he'd put, and I looked back on that previous video and it had got to like 8 million.
Mm.
So the fact that this long video, which considering everyone's truncated attention span, but you just had this very calmly spoken guy in the mountains with his dog telling his story about walking away from what he thought he should do to following his soul. And it just resonated with so many people, and the comments, you know, like people were telling their stories. So I feel that there's more of this coming now, that and also with the generation that we're in, that we're realizing we've got to this point now where we have this wisdom, we have this desire to do more. And also, if we're organized, that we have the technology and to actually put ourselves out there, and the barrier to entry to being a business person is pretty low. Like, you can do it on zero money if you want to, or if you've got a little bit invested, then you can kind of like speed the process up. The barrier is just your own will, and like you say, the willingness to make the choice. But I think with more people doing that, and then also I speak to younger people who are kind of looking at their parents and are realizing that their parents spent 30 or 40 years in something that they didn't want to do, and they're at the beginning where they're just about to go into university or in university and not really feeling it, looking at the world and thinking, do I want to spend 40 years doing something that I kind of like before I enjoy my life? And there's a resistance there also. So I think it's not even just for us to follow our own hearts, but also to set the example. And then also to say to those younger generations, don't waste 20 years, 30 years of your life. Just do what you need to do now so that we can make changes, because we all want change in the world. And I think the change starts with us just doing more soul-led, more purpose-driven work. Then we'll build it from our own individual spots. You know, that's my dream for everyone, really.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it's also, you know, and I think what young people are doing more now, and like you were saying, it's changing that paradigm of you work until you're 60 and then you enjoy life.
Mm.
Or you work during the week and then on the weekend you get to have fun. It's changing that whole mindset of like, no, enjoy your life now, you know, while you're working, go to the beach on a weekday. Like, it doesn't have to be work and then enjoy.
Mm.
It's enjoy your life now. Because I think what happens is that a lot of people get to that 60 or whatever it is, and firstly, actually, they can't retire.
Right.
And secondly, they realize that actually that's not what they're wanting to do. It's like, well, okay, what do they do now?
Mm.
And then often they're too sick or, in bad shape to actually be able to do the things that they wanted to do. It's changing the whole way that we work and the whole way that we do things. Yeah, enjoy your life while you work. Make it a part of your life. There's separating your work from you. Yes, you aren't your work, but at the same time, it's kind of all one in a way. You know, you are your work in terms of you don't switch on and off. You can be doing it all.
Oftentimes if someone's waiting till they retire and then they're like, okay, I'm going to enjoy my life, but the structure that your life gets built around, if you're working for someone else, it's Monday to Friday and you do this at certain times, you kind of do it as a result of having to do it. You're not really directed to do it. So then when that structure moves away and you get up and you decide what you're going to do at 11 o'clock on a Monday, and you're not used to that because there's no call for you to do, like if you're not used to organizing your own time. I think also you hear of many people decline when they come out of work and they've retired because there's a sense of like, well, who am I? Can I be self-led? And the sooner that you get those skills under your belt and know what it is to motivate yourself, know what it is to set out timescales for things that need to happen and what needs to happen when and how to communicate with people outside of the structure of a business and their ideas. And that's not to say that working is futile, because having a job and going into a corporate structure will give you an idea of how a business is run, but don't spend too long there if you feel like it's dragging the soul out of you. Use it as an opportunity to kind of learn some things and then take those things and those skills and put it into your own and bring that to the world, I feel.
You said something earlier which really struck me. You said you could have stayed with it because it felt okay to you and it felt like you could. And I think it's so important because I think that people often stay with things because it feels like, well, they can. But it's actually about, well, do you want to? So if people will often go, well, I can do it, so I should just do it. Well, it's okay for me to do it. It's okay. Yeah, I can carry on doing it. So there's almost this, because they're able to carry on doing it, there's a feeling like they should, because they think they can only change something when it's not in their capability to do it anymore. But actually, it's okay to change it, even though you're able to do it, but you don't want to do it. So it's finding that, and I think that's, it's finding that real desire. And again, it's following one's sole purpose of, is this what I want to be doing? Is this what I want to be doing for the next 20, 30 years of my life? And actually not even to think that far.
It's an evolving thing, because even with what I'm seeing I'm doing now, I'm seeing more openings in ways that I didn't even imagine as well. Like someone's asked me to look at something and consider doing it this way, and I'm like, okay, I never thought of that. But then my creative mind goes, oh, a new thing, so it's like, how can we turn what like me talking to myself is like, how do we turn this into something of value that is going in a different direction, the direction that I didn't imagine. But but I'm excited to explore. So it's being open to, you know, we talk about having this niche and having this ideal client, but sometimes there's an opportunity that comes outside of that that is there for you to open up to. So, but it only ever happens if you put yourself out there in the first instance. You know, that's the main
100%.
thing. You've got to get started,
You've
and
just
then
got
once
to,
you get started, then everything else.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's why, you know, like I said, I often tell my clients, like, just start. This isn't necessarily going to be the thing that you're going to do. And, you know, if someone works with me, then I obviously help them get to that place a lot sooner than if they're doing it on their own. But so maybe actually it's more, you know, if I'm speaking to someone who can't kind of come to me or whatever it is, it's always to say, just start.
Mm.
Just start one thing that you feel is bringing you closer to a sense of what you think you'd like to be doing, because you also only know by doing. We can't think our way to anything. The only way we can do it is by taking the action. And that's when we learn that actually, no, this isn't the thing I'm wanting to do. Actually, oh, I like this part of it, so I'm going to follow that more, you know. But I think what people often think is that, well, I'm speaking to women because I work with women, is that we have to have it all figured out before we start. I mean, firstly, I think we never actually get it all figured out.
Mm.
And the only way to figure it out is by doing, is by making the mistakes, is by trying, is by, you know, finding what you do like, what you don't like. The only way is by doing and taking what you think is the aligned action until you know what the aligned action is.
Can you let everyone know if there's anything to connect with you, if you've got anything coming up, and also where we can find you?
I mean, I have spots available for one-to-one coaching. And then I also have coming up, which I'm really excited about. I have a 4-week mini course, and it's called Visible and Profitable. And this is for the 40-plus woman who is feeling like they don't quite know how to tackle the whole social media thing and how to get their first or next paying client online. It's the first of what I've seen that is specifically geared for women our age, because I think that it's very different coming into social media at this age than it is for a 20-year-old.
Mm.
There's so much more overwhelm. There's a lot of other things we're doing, you know, besides obviously just trying to get on social media. There's a lot more fears. Everything feels a lot more overwhelming. So I'm really coming from this place of understanding what it's like for women and teaching them in a way that they can feel comfortable to ask the questions that they think are the stupid questions or the obvious questions or whatever it is, and to feel comfortable doing so. And then people can just find me on my website, biancarael.com, or on Instagram at Bianca Rael Coach. Instagram is the place I hang out the most. And yeah, they can find me there.
Thank you, Bianca, for today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca, for sharing me, and thank you once again, listener, for listening. If you have enjoyed this episode, or indeed any of the episodes, I invite you to leave a review and to share this episode with someone you feel would benefit from the wisdom of my guest. If you want to find out more about me, it's Carol May Whittick, CarolMaywhittick.com. Also, you can find me on Instagram, Casmic, CAZMICK, or you can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, Carol May Whittick. So until the next episode, take care of yourself. Speak soon. Bye-bye.